decided to do my in-service on supplements. Been a lot of supplement talk going around the clinic, so I figured we'd take a deep dive into a couple that I thought were important and also interesting. So first is we're going to start with the disclaimer, like recommending supplements to individuals, especially those who aren't adults, can kind of be like murky waters. So we should just present them with proposed benefits, our personal experience with the supplements, and resources. Ultimately, the decision is their own. First one we're going to talk about is creatine. So first off, what is creatine? Creatine is a substance that is found naturally in muscle cells, red meats, and various seafoods. Creatine shares similarities with amino acids, and some factors that affect your body's creatine stores include Beet intake, exercise, amount of muscle mass, and levels of hormones like testosterone and IGF-1. About 95% of creatine in humans is stored in muscles in the form of phosphocreatine. The other 5% is found in your brain, kidneys, and liver. So, what is the benefit of taking creatine? So, first we have to talk about the phosphocreatine in the ATP-PCR system, which is the phosphocreatine energy system. So for the ATP-PCR energy system, this is an anaerobic energy system, meaning it doesn't require oxygen, in which the generation of ATP is coupled with an exergonic energy-releasing breakdown of phosphocreatine stored in muscle cells. So the breakdown creates an inorganic molecule that breaks free to bind with ADP to form ATP, which is the energy-producing molecule. So if you are supplementing with creatine, you're adding more of the substrate required for the ATP-PCR system. Therefore, if you have more of a reservoir of creatine for this energy system, this means that you have more ability to utilize and tap into the system. So, when is the ATP-PCR system used? High intensity, short bursts of intensity exercise. Quick bursts of activity typically lasting less than 10 seconds. For example, 1 rep max, deadlift, bench, squat, short sprint, or jump. Our bodies will use other energy systems like anaerobic glycolysis and or the aerobic energy systems for longer durations of exercise. But specifically for the ATP-PCR system, it's that energy system for less than 10-second duration. So some of the research to support creatine. This is a 14-week study in older adults determined that adding creatine to a weight training program significantly increased leg strength and muscle mass. The subjects followed a 14-week resistance training program, men and women age 65. Both groups followed the training protocol. One group received 5 grams of monohydrate daily. The other group just received dextrose, which is the placebo. The creatine group showed greater increase in isometric knee extension, isometric dorsiflexion strength, and increases in intramuscular creatine, and overall increases in total/fat-free mass. And no side effects were reported with that study. In another 12-week study in weightlifters, creatine increased muscle fiber growth 2 to 3 times more than training alone. The increase in total body mass doubled alongside 1 rep max of bench press. So this study looked at young males who had already resistance training experience, and the strength increases in the bench and squat were significantly greater than the creatine versus the placebo group. Again, in this study, they also used like dextrose, which is just like sugar, as the placebo. And then another one that I found, which was a meta-analysis that looked at supplements that are supposed to augment lean mass and strength gains during resistance training. This meta-analysis reviewed 250 supplements. However, only 6 total supplements had 2 studies or more that met the criteria for inclusion. So the end result of this meta-analysis revealed that creatine and beta-hydroxy beta-methylbutyrate, which is HMB, were both found to significantly increase net lean mass gains of 0.36 and 0.28 per week, and strength gains of 1.09 to 1.4% per week. So I've also looked at some of the side effects. In the studies I mentioned previously, no side effects were reported. So there's some anecdotal evidence that says that individuals sometimes report GI disturbances and muscle cramps. However, there's actually research that suggests creatine supplementation actually helps muscle cramps. There's no evidence linked to creatine and retaining water. However, some do report feeling bloated. Creatine does not equal water muscles. In fact, 79% of our muscles are actually water, so technically we all have water muscles, except for me. Just made of iron. Alright, so research on how to take it. So most of the research I looked up included 5 grams of daily supplementation. Some were supplementing prior to exercise, and some was just 5 grams total for the day. It didn't really matter when they took it. There was no real differences found in terms of timing of taking creatine. But this is one of the most well-researched supplements, and there are studies that have looked at chronic use over 4 years, and nobody has reported any adverse effects while supplementing with creatine. No research shows added benefits of a loading phase or cycling on and off. Hydration is key, period, whether we're taking creatine or not. So if someone does not have adequate hydration to begin with, they're probably not the best candidate for the supplement. What to expect when you take creatine: gains in fat-free mass as lean muscle mass, a more resilient ATP-PCR energy system due to the increase in substrate, and an increase in performance in those activities lasting less than 10 seconds. So some other proposed benefits that doesn't have much research to support, but a little bit out there: may lower blood sugar levels, improve muscle function and quality of life in older adults, can also help treat non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So now we're going to talk about lion's mane. So lion's mane is a type of mushroom. These mushrooms can be enjoyed raw, cooked, dried, steeped, or extracted into supplement form. People report that these mushrooms have a seafood-like taste. I think Tim kind of said that. So how does lion's mane work? So studies have found that lion's mane mushroom contains 2 special compounds that can stimulate the growth of brain cells: hericenones and erinacine. Both of these compounds have been shown to promote nerve growth factor biosynthesis in vitro. Both compounds are low molecular weight compounds that easily cross the blood-brain barrier using astroglial cells that support nerve function, which, if you remember back to neuro, these astroglial cells are supportive cells and function to provide axon guidance and synaptic support. So by supplementing with lion's mane, we are providing our bodies with additional substrates that could lead to greater stimulation of nerve growth factor in our bodies, leading to improved synaptic function, increased neuroplasticity, and overall improvement in brain health. So some of the benefits of lion's mane: there's some studies that show it could protect against dementia. Studies have been shown to reduce symptoms of memory loss in mice, as well as prevent neuronal damage caused by amyloid beta plaques, which is what kind of causes Alzheimer's and dementia in our brains. Could speed up the recovery of nervous system injuries, may boost the immune system. There was an animal research study that showed that lion's mane can boost immunity by increasing the activity of intestinal immune system, which protects the body from pathogens that enter the gut via the mouth or the nose. Recommended dosage: there's no clear-cut evidence that shows an optimal amount. However, typical ranges between 0.5 to 3 grams. I personally have taken 1 to 2 grams daily on and off over the past 2 years. There is some research that also suggests that 2 to 4 grams, like front-loaded for 3 weeks, will accelerate results, followed by daily supplementation of 1 to 2 grams. My personal experience: so like I said, I have tried like that with lion's mane for the past 2 years. One thing I noticed that when I take it in the morning, especially like 2 grams, I notice a sense of like mental clarity, and especially if I sit down to like study or like apply my brain in that kind of capacity, that I just have that sense of mental clarity and also feel like I can focus in for longer. I don't know if that's just placebo, but that's just my personal experience with it.
How do you usually take it?
I usually take it in a capsule form.
Okay.
Or there was another supplement that's like similar to mud water. It's called 4-Sigmatic, which just has like a blend of mushrooms. It has cordyceps. It has lion's mane. It looks like a little cocoa powder, and I would just dump that in with my coffee in the morning. So cordyceps mushrooms, some of the benefits may increase exercise performance. In one study, researchers tested the effects on exercise capacity in 30 healthy adults using a bike. Participants received either 3 grams of placebo or 3 grams of cordyceps for 6 weeks. By the end of the study, VO2 max had increased by 7% in participants who took the cordyceps, while participants in the placebo group showed no change. One thing to note about this study is that they didn't say if these participants had been following an aerobic training program, so maybe some of these adaptations were just due to them starting an aerobic training program, but they did compare it to a placebo group in this particular study. They also have anti-aging properties, so there's several mice studies that have shown that it increases antioxidants in mice, helping improve memory and sexual function. Antioxidants help fight free radicals in our bodies, and these free radicals could potentially contribute to disease and the aging process. So the dosage for cordyceps mushrooms recommendation is 1 to 3 grams a day. The exact mechanism of how these mushrooms work is kind of unclear, but it's primarily hypothesized that it's bioactive polysaccharides, modified nucleosides, and cyclosporine metabolites. So these mushrooms are more like parasitic in nature. It's kind of like that same idea of a probiotic, or like consuming Greek yogurt, where it's good bacteria for our guts and it like cleans out the area. So like kind of the same thing with the cordyceps mushrooms, parasitic in nature, attacking those pathogens and like those free radicals.
Did you see how they grow them and like harvest them?
I didn't see specifically, but a lot of the research I looked into, it's like pretty tough to actually extract cordyceps mushrooms.
They grow on the back of caterpillars.
Do that?
Yeah, and that's
Wow.
how they like farm the caterpillars
Yeah.
and they grow out of them.
Yeah. That's why they're so expensive, because it's kind of hard. Yeah. Now we talk about Beets. First and foremost, we got to shout out the man Denny Dahl here. He's the one that first turned me on to Beets, but previously I had known that Beets were a superfood. Yeah, Denny Dog up there. So, Beets have an absolute elite nutrient profile. For 3.5 grams of Beets, you get folate, fiber, potassium, magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin B6, iron, manganese, and folate again, because it's very high in folate. So it's responsible for 20% of daily value of folate, which is vital for growth, development, and functioning of our heart. And also 14% of the daily value of manganese, which is involved in bone formation, nutrient metabolism, brain function, and more. Some of the studies to support Beets for blood pressure control indicate that beetroot juice, specifically 8 ounces daily supplementation, could significantly lower levels of systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. These effects can be attributed to the high concentration of nitrates in Beets. Nitrates equal nitric oxide, which equals a molecule that dilates blood vessels, which in turn causes blood pressure to drop, improve oxygenation, and overall blood flow throughout the body. So how can Beets improve athletic performance? Several studies have shown that Beets can have a positive impact on VO2 max and endurance. Nitrates appear to affect performance by improving the efficiency of mitochondria, which are responsible for producing energy cells. Blood nitrate levels seem to peak within 2 to 3 hours of consumption of Beets or their juice. Therefore, it is best to consume them a couple hours before training or competing to maximize your potential for benefits. Recommendation across all studies is pretty much 8 ounces of beetroot juice. Some of the side effects, slight pink, red tinge to urine or bowel movements. There are also other benefits that I didn't list here, however, these were the main ones that I found. So, I started taking 8 ounces of beet juice about 3 weeks ago, and I kind of wanted to put it to the test with some of my more energy demanding workouts. So I feel like, especially aerobically, my more energy demanding workouts is whenever I do Muay Thai pad work, which is about 90 minutes twice a week. I kind of broke it down into 2 different days, where one day I don't do the beetroot juice, the other day I take 8 ounces about 2 hours before, just like the studies were saying. One thing I noticed, again, I don't know if it's placebo, but there's a lot of evidence to support my claims, is that I feel like I can exercise at like a higher intensity for longer when I supplement with the beetroot juice versus the days where I don't. That's just my personal experience with it, but also there's a lot of research on beetroot juice, especially with like cyclists and like endurance kind of events that kind of prove my claims as well. So just other general ways to boost performance: adequate sleep schedule and going to bed at the same time every night. Sleep goes a long way in terms of injury reduction and just overall health and hygiene for your personal self. Consuming 1 to 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight is critical for athletes and those looking to gain as maintain muscle mass, especially crucial for those who are recovering from injury. We kind of need that amino acid profile in order to build some of the building blocks and progress through our injuries. Hydration, we gotta make sure for guys, we're getting 3.7 liters a day, 2.7 liters for women. I don't care if you like the taste of water or not, you just gotta drink it. Another big thing is eating enough. A lot of our patient population, I feel, are at a calorie deficit without trying to be. Like sometimes when I talk to kids, especially Hubbard, for example, he tells me he has like a granola bar for breakfast, eats like a small sandwich for lunch, then goes the whole day without eating, then has practice or a game, then comes in here, and then it's like 6-7 hours before he eats again. So I just feel like if the goal is to gain muscle and to also, improve your strength and build up your lean muscle mass, we got to make sure these kids are eating enough in general. So another big thing is just following an optimal weight training program that is designed to meet whatever goals you have. Shout out to Sean, who sets up our athletes for success, and shout out to the rest of the PTs who help people get better from their injuries and recover from their injuries. So some of my final thoughts: lion's mane and cordyceps mushroom in general are great nootropics. A lot of research has come out to support their consumption. Unfortunately, a lot of the research is amongst mice. There is some human research as well. I believe that more research will come out to continue to support various mushrooms along with psilocybin for its benefits on mental health. Creatine is one of the most cost-efficient and well-researched supplements that actually work. Pretty sure for 100 servings of creatine, you can get it for like $15. And it really does work. There's tons of studies to support it. Beets and their juice, they're both nutrient dense. They promote nitric oxide production and boost endurance performance, as well as have a positive impact on blood pressure. And I believe that prior to supplementation, individuals should make sure that they are eating enough, number one, have a balanced diet, and are consuming enough water, along with following an adequate training program. We can't just have kids day one in the weight room looking to take creatine. They simply just haven't paid their dues yet to even notice that kind of effect. So that's kind of what I just repeated. So before consuming supplements, you need consistency. You need to pay your dues in the weight room, training, practicing your sport before thinking about getting the slight 1%, 2% competitive edge that the supplements could